Most people think retirement is about age, luck, or hitting some magical number in a brokerage account. But the uncomfortable truth is that retirement is really about how fast you can build systems that produce income without your constant effort. Two people can earn the same salary, live similar lives, and yet one quietly buys their freedom decades earlier. The difference isn't discipline alone, it's leverage. What if retirement wasn't something you waited for, but something you engineered on purpose? Not by gambling on risky bets or burning yourself out, but by stacking side hustles that compound skill, income, and decision-making over time. Side hustles that don't just pay bills, but actively shrink the distance between where you are and where you want to be. That's a very different game than most people are playing. In this video, you're not going to hear about overnight success or flashy shortcuts. Instead, you'll see how ordinary skills, when structured correctly, can quietly fast-track financial independence. These are side hustles designed to buy back time, not trade more of it away. And once you understand how they fit together, retirement stops feeling distant. It starts feeling inevitable. 1. Consulting. Monetizing what you already know. Consulting often sounds intimidating, but in reality, it's simply the act of packaging experience into solutions. Most professionals underestimate how valuable their accumulated knowledge already is, especially when it solves a specific, painful problem for a defined group of people. Someone who's spent years inside an industry sees patterns, shortcuts, and mistakes that beginners can't see yet. Consulting turns that invisible advantage into income without needing inventory, employees, or large upfront costs. What makes consulting powerful as a side hustle is the leverage between effort and reward. 1 hour of thoughtful advice can be worth weeks or months of trial and error for a client, which is why consulting commands premium pricing. Instead of trading time for a salary, the consultant trades clarity for results. This shifts the mindset from "how many hours can I work" to "how much value can I create per conversation." The fastest path usually isn't becoming a general expert, but a very specific one. Narrowing the focus to a single problem, role, or outcome makes the offer easier to explain and easier to buy. As the consultant refines their positioning, they begin to notice something interesting. Clients don't just want answers, they want frameworks, systems, and confidence. That realization quietly opens the door to a different kind of leverage, where the same knowledge no longer has to be delivered one-on-one. 2. Digital products. Build once, sell repeatedly. Digital products represent a fundamental shift in how effort translates into income. Instead of delivering the same knowledge repeatedly in real time, the creator invests deeply once and lets the product do the heavy lifting afterward. A course, ebook, or template captures structured thinking and turns it into an asset that can be sold an unlimited number of times. This is where time stops being the bottleneck and starts becoming an ally. What makes digital products especially powerful for retirement-focused side hustles is durability. When built around timeless problems like career advancement, financial organization, or operational efficiency, they don't expire quickly. Each sale becomes a small vote of confidence that compounds over time, especially when paired with honest improvement and iteration. The creator slowly transitions from being paid for effort to being paid for foresight. The key mistake most people make is overbuilding before validating demand. Successful creators usually start by solving a problem live, then turning those solutions into structured material. Consulting conversations, repeated questions, and common client mistakes naturally reveal what should become a product. Once that pattern is recognized, a subtle shift occurs. Income is no longer capped by availability, and attention starts turning toward distribution and trust. 3. Dividend growth. Investing as a side hustle mindset. Dividend growth investing is often misunderstood as passive or boring, but in reality, it requires a very active way of thinking. It's not just about buying stocks and waiting, it's about deliberately assembling a system that produces rising income over time. Each dollar invested is treated like a tiny employee, expected to work harder every year without asking for raises. That mental shift alone changes how people evaluate opportunities, risk, and patience. As a side hustle mindset, dividend growth investing trains long-term discipline. Instead of chasing quick wins or market excitement, the focus moves toward reliability, durability, and cash flow resilience. Companies that can consistently grow payouts usually have strong fundamentals, pricing power, and operational efficiency. Learning to identify those traits sharpens judgment in ways that extend far beyond investing. What makes this approach especially powerful is how it reframes progress. Success isn't measured by market headlines, but by whether income today is higher than income last year. Over time, that growing cash flow begins to feel tangible and motivating, reinforcing consistency over impulse. And once that income starts covering small expenses, attention naturally turns to other assets that behave in similar, scalable ways. 4. Real estate micro-investing. Without becoming a landlord. Real estate has long been associated with wealth, but traditional ownership often comes with time-consuming responsibilities. Micro-investing changes that equation by allowing exposure to real estate without dealing with tenants, repairs, or midnight phone calls. Through REITs and fractional platforms, individuals can participate in income-producing properties using relatively small amounts of capital. This makes real estate feel more like a financial instrument than a second job. What's appealing about this approach is how it separates cash flow from management effort. The investor benefits from rent, appreciation, and inflation protection, while professionals handle operations. This structure aligns well with a retirement-focused strategy, where the goal is steady income rather than hands-on control. It also allows diversification across property types and geographic regions that would be difficult to achieve alone. Over time, micro-investing teaches a valuable lesson about scalability. Owning a single property concentrates risk and attention, while fractional exposure spreads both. As distributions become more predictable, investors start thinking in terms of systems rather than assets. That mindset naturally leads to opportunities where income and influence grow together, not in competition. 5. Content creation. With a long term. Moat content creation only looks risky when it's treated like a lottery ticket. When approached as a business, it becomes an asset that compounds attention, trust, and optionality over time. Platforms like YouTube, newsletters, and blogs reward consistency far more than short bursts of creativity. The creators who last are rarely the loudest. They're the clearest and most useful. A long-term moat in content comes from perspective, not production tricks. Anyone can copy formats, but lived experience, thoughtful synthesis, and clear thinking are difficult to replicate. When content consistently solves real problems or reframes how people think, audiences return by habit, not hype. That trust eventually becomes the foundation for monetization that doesn't feel forced or transactional. What many people don't realize is that content compounds even when views don't spike. Old videos, articles, or emails continue working quietly, pulling in the right audience over time. Each piece becomes a small digital employee, pointing people toward ideas, products, or opportunities. And once that ecosystem starts forming, the creator begins to see leverage opportunities that go far beyond ad revenue alone. 6. Buying small cash flow businesses. Small cash flow businesses are rarely glamorous, which is exactly why they're often overlooked. These are companies with simple operations, predictable customers, and steady revenue. Laundromats, service businesses, niche websites, or local operations with repeat demand. While they don't promise explosive growth, they offer something far more useful for retirement planning: consistency. Buying one is less about innovation and more about stepping into an already functioning system. The key shift here is learning to think like an owner instead of a creator or employee. Owners focus on cash flow, processes, and risk reduction rather than excitement or personal attachment. A business that generates modest monthly income can be far more valuable than a brilliant idea that never stabilizes. When evaluated properly, these businesses behave more like income-producing assets than jobs. Over time, acquiring or operating small businesses sharpens financial judgment. It forces attention on margins, customer lifetime value, and operational efficiency. Even small improvements, pricing, systems, or delegation can materially increase income. And once that leverage becomes clear, it's hard not to notice how technology can quietly multiply those gains without adding complexity. 7. Automation and AI as income accelerators. Automation and AI change the economics of side hustles by removing repetitive effort from the equation. Tasks that once required constant attention, scheduling, customer follow-ups, data analysis, content repurposing, can now be handled quietly in the background. This doesn't replace human judgment, it amplifies it. The individual remains the decision-maker, but the systems do the heavy lifting. What makes automation powerful is how it compresses time. A solo operator can suddenly perform at the level of a small team, not by working harder, but by designing smarter workflows. This allows services to scale without proportional increases in hours, stress, or burnout. Over time, income becomes less tied to presence and more tied to systems. As these tools are integrated, something subtle happens to the way opportunities are evaluated. Ideas are no longer dismissed because they seem too time-consuming. Instead, the question becomes whether the process can be partially or fully systematized. That way of thinking naturally pushes someone out of a worker mindset and into an investor's perspective, where leverage matters more than effort. 8. Side hustles that teach you to think like an investor. Not all side hustles are created equal, and the most valuable ones often teach lessons beyond the income they generate. Some projects force people to think in terms of return on capital, opportunity cost, and downside risk. Instead of asking how much effort something takes, the focus shifts to what that effort produces over time. This mental upgrade is subtle, but it compounds just like money does. Side hustles that behave like investments encourage better decision-making. They reward patience, data-driven thinking, and emotional control, skills that carry over into every financial area of life. Mistakes become feedback rather than failures, and each iteration sharpens judgment. Over time, confidence grows not from optimism, but from repeated exposure to real-world outcomes. What's powerful here is the alignment between income and education. Even modest returns can be worthwhile if they sharpen instincts and reduce future errors. As these projects mature, the operator starts recognizing patterns across assets, markets, and behaviors. That recognition naturally raises an important question. What happens when all that income and insight is deliberately redirected instead of spent? 9. Reinvesting side hustle. Income to compress time. Reinvesting side hustle income is where acceleration truly begins. Instead of using extra cash to upgrade lifestyle, it's deliberately fed back into assets that produce more income, more reach, or more efficiency. This creates a feedback loop where today's effort funds tomorrow's leverage. Over time, progress stops feeling linear and starts feeling exponential. What makes reinvestment powerful is that it removes reliance on motivation. Systems grow whether enthusiasm is high or low, because capital is doing the work. Profits might be reinvested into better tools, higher quality assets, education, or distribution channels that expand future returns. Each reinvestment decision quietly shortens the distance between the present moment and financial independence. As this habit solidifies, time itself becomes the variable being optimized. Decisions are no longer about short-term comfort, but about how quickly optionality can be increased. The side hustle stops being extra income and becomes a compounding engine. And once that engine is clearly visible, the idea of retirement starts to feel less like an age and more like a controllable outcome. Fast-tracking retirement isn't about doing more things at once. It's about doing the right things in the right order, long enough for them to compound. Each side hustle you've seen here isn't powerful on its own. It's powerful because it trains leverage, judgment, and patience at the same time. When income grows independently of your hours, stress drops and clarity increases. That's when financial decisions stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. The real question isn't which side hustle is best, but which one moves you closer to thinking like an owner instead of a worker. Which project builds skills that stack? Which one creates assets that keep paying even when you step away? Retirement becomes realistic when you stop chasing comfort and start designing systems that quietly replace effort with income. If this way of thinking resonated with you, stay connected to the channel. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep learning how to build income that works for you instead of because of you. The sooner you apply even one of these ideas, the sooner time gets back on your side.